Hello and welcome to Screenworks. I'm John Uriarte, curator of Screenworks with the Photographers Gallery. And with Marco De Mutis, digital curator at Photomuseum Winterthur, we created this program of fortnightly live streams to explore the changing role of the photographic image in algorithmic and network cultures. Each event is led by a curator, a researcher, or an artist who shares their screen with the audience to navigate their core artistic practice and where it takes place. We encourage our guests to experiment with the live stream format. Some of them propose research-oriented events, others guided us into particular corners of the internet. We had a few performing live with us, and others have invited us to have a peek behind the scenes of particular artwork. We have hosted now more than 70 Screenwork events in total. You can find video recordings of each of them on our website, on our YouTube channel and Twitch channel, all publicly accessible for free. And you can browse through the archive, through the tags on our recently updated website, screenworks.com, or through curated playlists on YouTube. Please remember that if you have found Screenworks useful for your professional or personal interest, do consider subscribing to folders for €7. You will support the program and its artists and also get your personalized folder on folders.screenworks.com. There you will receive files and extra content from the artists and researchers of Screenworks. And now some housekeeping information. Your microphone should be muted to avoid noise disturbances. If it is still on, please mute it. And as I said, we are recording and we will be archiving this event. And feel free to use the public chat to ask questions, or feel free also to send a private message to Marco or to me.
And hello also from my side. I'm Marco De Mutis, coming to you live from Photomuseum Winterthur in Switzerland. Today, we continue the exploration of contemporary generative AI processes, something that we've been witnessing now since 2022, and much longer if we think about the impact of machine learning, as well as technologies and algorithms that have been shaping synthetic images and transforming the photographic image. We have hosted one of the very first prompt battles with Sebastian Schmig, Florian Schmidt, and the prompt battle team back in November 22, looking at OpenAI DALL-E platform and the emerging practice of prompting as a form of image creation. In our Screenwork with Computational Mama in April 2023, we investigated the construction of imaging system and social biases through the absent figures of motherhood that the artist attempts to then produce and reintegrate inside the system. Last November 2023, we stepped into the Lion 5B dataset with Beck Haberstroh, exploring the real people who ended up, most often without knowledge or consent, among the 5 billion images and photographs that power the training of stable diffusion models. Now, today we are back in stable diffusion, one of the most popular latent diffusion models, whose code and model weights have been open sourced. This time we're going to shed light on the processes of image creation, opening the black box that generate AI images to see how it's possible to manipulate a dataset and to distort images of reality that is always constructed upon biased and subjective representations. By now, AI images have not only become commonplace online, but their development of photorealism together with their online circulation have accelerated the post-truth era, from scams and hoaxes on Facebook posts to closed communities on internet forums that can forge their own evidence and support their theories against science and mainstream beliefs. The ground is shaking, and the ground truth seems to be shaking too. So to lead us into the opaque nature of photographic truth, combining the regurgitative nature of diffusion models with the spread of conspiracy theories on the internet, is Sunny Attias. Half tutorial and half collective workshop, this Screenwork will show the audience how to fine-tune an existing generative AI model by collectively submitting images for its training. So make sure to be ready to submit your images once Sunny asks for our cooperation. Sunny Attias is an artist working within the expanded field of photography, including computer-generated image-making practices, sculptural photography, and filmmaking. His work is rooted in the exploration of materiality, space, and semiotics in physical and digital space, And his current research revolves around applying theories of the photographic image to the encoding and decoding of video game images. After acquiring a BA in Fine Arts in London, he is currently completing an MA in photography at ECAL in Lausanne, in Switzerland, where he is extending his practice through use of AI and computer-generated image-making technologies, combined with traditional forms of photography. Dear Sunny, thanks for being with us. The screen is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Marco, for this introduction. I'm going to share my screen. Cool. Okay, so as was mentioned in the introduction, I'm going to talk about a project that was developed in the past few months, specifically exploring the sort of, the regurgitative nature of AI diffusion models, and specifically through the lens of conspiracy theories. One thing to note during this screen walk is that it would be nice if people would submit some images for the creation of another model in line with conspiracy theories. So I will post in the chat a link to a Google Drive where you can post your created images, and a link to a Stable Diffusion website where you can, I'm pretty sure, freely generate any image you want, and therefore participate in the creation of this model. So those two links are in the chat. And I thought for this screen walk we could use, a lighter tone for a conspiracy theory. And one I chose was simply that the trees have cameras. They have these surveillance technologies, and this is what we're going to use to basically alter the AI's notion of what a tree is, and participate in sort of this dispersal of conspiracy theories online. So if you would like to either generate images of trees with surveillance cameras, you can do so and then upload them on the Google Drive, or you could generate any type of image that you want relating to any type of conspiracy, even your own, or you could also source existing images related to conspiracy theories and upload them. And then when it's time to create the model, we will curate and we'll decide what is best. So even though I already have a selection here, I think it's good if there's perhaps a bit of noise, a bit of different elements that are perhaps not supposed to be there. So with that out of the way, let me continue. So yes, I'm currently a Master of Photography student at ECAL in Lausanne, Switzerland. And this project was developed during our course called Automated Photography with our dear Marco here. And the point was to basically explore some of the facets that make up generative AI diffusion models. And the point was to find an interesting angle, try and tackle it from a way that perhaps reveals something about the tool, but obviously make it an art project in a sense. So what I decided to do was to obviously take this angle, this framing around the conspiracy theories. And it kind of brought me back to when I was 14 years old and when I got my first iPhone 4, and I immediately was, going on YouTube when it wasn't as moderated as today. And I was drawn to all these, like the greatest hits of conspiracy theories, the New World Order, the Illuminati, everything with the triangles. It was all there. Obviously, through time, things things have changed, but this was definitely something that interested me when I was like, 14, 15. And, today conspiracy theories, especially when we think about the visual language, the grammar, how they're dispersed visually, especially online today, things have changed. So this is like classic conspiracy theory, visual identity, really like zoomed in, with the famous circles, obviously. But images, in this sense, they were always used as a way to prove some sort of evidence, to prove a theory, to say that something was in fact existing. I mean, I've seen countless, the footage of the UFOs, some which are still being actually discussed in courts today. And yeah, so today, especially with AI, the field for conspiracy theories has really changed and is kind of getting a bit more worrying, I would say. I mean, already with this image, I don't know if you've seen it. I'm sure the image of the Pentagon, which has this explosion, and I think it tanked the US stock market for at least a few hours. But at the end of the day, it's just an AI image, but it's still generating all this alarming attention towards it. But it's not used in the way that the others were used to prove some sort of internet legend or a theory. It's really used in the moment to sort of shake, I'd say, like the online landscape. And even here, NBC News is putting the tag fake photo, as well as BBC here, and we're seeing Facebook as well, actually recently have been introducing this tag just to flag AI images because they're being used so much. And yeah, like here we have more examples when the famous Donald Trump arrest, which these look surprisingly convincing to maybe the uninitiated eye, to the subtleties that point out an AI generated image. And then on the right here is an example from The Guardian, not meant as a conspiracy theory. This was at the time of the protests in Colombia, and they wanted to have this image that would showcase the police brutality, and they chose to generate an AI image. And obviously they got warned by these photo journalists and other platforms that this was not really like the right move, because it can solicit creation and dispersal of more conspiracy theories. And it's this whole idea of what you see online, is it true, is it not? If like these news platforms, these online platforms start using more and more this AI generated content, I think it's really going to generate more confusion for the viewer. And yeah, so before I talk about the project that was made, I just want to show you some examples of current, how are conspiracy theories diffused online currently. There's a huge community on TikTok, accounts with millions of views that either manage to stay alive or that end up being taken down after a while. And the image that illustrates the conspiracy theory is much different than the first two examples with the moon landing and the UFO bunker. So yeah, I'm going to show a few of these that exist on TikTok, and yeah.
Than we thought. For years, people have debated over the shape of the Earth, if it is round or flat. Now this might just all be a conspiracy, but what if the Earth had more than just 7 continents? In Antarctica was just a giant ice wall that kept us from seeing the rest of the continents. What if once you made it past the ice wall, you'll find the 20 continents that are really being hidden from us? And what if there was a map that showed this? There are theories that these continents contain prehistoric animals, aliens, and advanced civilizations, and that the 7 continents that we are living in is actually a giant farm or business owned by a small handful of families that make up the filthy rich in the real world, or in the other continents that we don't know about. The Earth might be bigger than we thought.
Yeah, so here,
The Earth might...
what's interesting, I thought, is that obviously this is trying to talk about a conspiracy theory, and the visuals are all generated by AI, and you've even got that typical AI editing, the moving past the shots, the zooming into the images, but they're all used as illustrations. It's not used as maybe a placeholder for evidence, really. It's, we are aware of the visual language of AI images, the contrast, the use of colors, the sort of illustration part, and here, yeah, like it's really used as more as like a storytelling tool, really. But nonetheless, it still has nearly 5 million views, and even if you look at these other ones.
Lied to because no one has ever been in space. There is a theory that suggests we have never explored space due to a transparent barrier surrounding our world. Beyond this barrier, there is no open space or vacuum, but rather water. It may all sound crazy, but in 1962, the US government detonated a few nuclear bombs in the sky, allegedly to test the atmosphere's reaction to their explosion. So they want us to believe. However, some claim that they were actually attempting to see if they could break through this invisible barrier. Ironically, this program was called Operation Fishbowl. This theory is fueled by the observation that many have noticed stars appear to twinkle or shimmer through a liquid-like substance when viewed with the naked eye or through a camera. Rocket enthusiasts have also noted that the rockets we have launched seem to encounter an invisible ceiling, creating an effect similar to what one would observe in water. You are being lied to because no one has ever...
So again, the use here is obviously more illustrative than, as I said, a placeholder for evidence, but it's still interesting that a lot of these theories are now being dispersed on platforms like TikTok compared to, when I was 14 and consuming this on YouTube, on these long edited videos with, the music from Requiem for a Dream, and it was very dramatic, and it was really supposed to elicit this emotional response of fear, of like something is really happening at the moment. And then here is very popular, but it's going more through this storytelling format. And actually a reason for this, why conspiracy theories are so popular on TikTok, is actually because people who make them have a through the reward and monetization systems of TikTok, they're kind of encouraged to continue making these for views. So here I came across, how much money can you make in being, a conspiracy theory kind of horror storyteller on TikTok. And it turns out it's actually quite lucrative. One of the examples they say is, conspiracy and horror. So this idea of thrilling the audience. And it is, totally true. If I go to this, that was this famous one, Conspiracy Talk. Oh, I can't remember that. Yeah, no, I can't remember, but there was one that was, insanely popular. That was not only talking about conspiracy theories, but also just this one. Insanely popular, but also going through this scheme as if it was, basically a content creator. So fusing storytelling of made up things. Here he's talking about morbid facts, but also these conspiracy theories that are fueled in. And it's just this mix of like what's real and what's not, what gets dispersed online, and then the story behind it. And then now with the added, visual elements from these AI generated images. And it's just that for now, there are some that in the beginning I was, when I was doing some of the, trying to generate some flat earth images, I made, my own model based on these existing illustrations and images that you can find on Google Images, on DuckDuckGo, on any type of image browser. But then I tried to generate some directly in an AI. So this is DALL-E, not altered. This is just straight up DALL-E, I think 3, the one that you can find in Chat GPT, and just asking it to show me an image of a flat Earth as if captured by NASA, and I would say it's highly detailed, but it's not photorealistic. Like we can still immediately grasp that this is AI through, again, the colors, the contrast, the way, the sharpening, the way that it kind of looks a bit too illustrative to be a photograph, and also because we can simply compare it to all the images of space that we have. And so today, these videos are being used. They're being used to illustrate, but we already have examples. Here is Midjourney. A few months ago, there was this hack. I mean, not this hack, but this tip for prompting, that when you would use words like posted on Snapchat or Reddit or posted on this type of forum in 2018, 2016, again, the words and the dates come into account of what's going to turn up in the image. But with using these references, they would get these awkwardly mundane and normal type of images that one would take on, an iPhone, or, for their Snapchat story or whatever. So this is just to say that we are in the beginning of AI being used, for this illustration, for this storytelling of things that exist, but also obviously do not exist. And this idea that it's not being used as evidence yet is really it. It's not being used as evidence yet. But with already things that are coming out like this, I think things can obviously take a different turn. And I'm sure everybody has seen in the past few days the text to video from OpenAI, the Sora, how incredibly realistic that looks, and how we're going to go from obviously these still images that sometimes we use to animate, like in the introduction, but with moving image, I think the stakes are obviously going to get much higher. So this is one aspect. Another thing that I quickly wanted to talk about is, obviously podcasts are very popular. It's a popular form of communication, of entertainment, of consumption of knowledge, of media. Obviously, Joe Rogan is a big figure in the online podcasts, and also conspiracy theories. I mean, if you've heard just a few of the episodes, he does like to talk about them. And I just wanted to show this clip and then compare it to a different clip. So
just conspiracy theory about aliens is,
I don't know if I'm ready for it,
that Earth is essentially a farm, and human beings are the vessels that contain souls, and they want us because this is how they create souls. And so they're farming us. They've created us. So we started off as primates, and through some sort of genetic intervention, I'm not saying I believe this. I'm just saying that this is like top of the food chain, put your tinfoil hat on super tight, that they farm us. And that the whole reason why human beings are involved in this conflict, constant conflict, it's all of it is to increase our competition with each other, increase our ability to control resources, which will increase our technology, which will ultimately lead to us creating this being that we're going to create, this artificially intelligent super god. You know what the dark.
Okay, so that was, you know, a real clip from one of the podcasts with these AI images on top, again, just to illustrate what's being said. But you know, there's the other side of the coin of fake images online. It's all this stuff behind deep fakes and how this is getting obviously increasingly real, but how the line between what you can determine is real or has been faked is like increasingly being blurred, basically. And so here's a clip again from TikTok. I'm pretty sure it's been taken down, but of this technology using deepfake to then take advantage of this yeah, like the authority, the believability of Joe Rogan as a podcast host and as someone who talks about conspiracy theories, but then just twist them to diffuse and this conspiracy.
Did you guys hear about this? Scientists captured the Wendigo and tried to keep it a secret. Check this out. Just a week ago, an explorer found something the world will never forget. Mike Jordan was an urban explorer from Seattle, Washington. He had heard about an old CIA research facility that was closed down in 1993 and decided to go find out. The building was deep in the woods, and Mike spent over an hour walking from his car to the perimeter fence. He quickly hopped the fence and continued towards the ruins of the research facility. As he approached the entrance, he felt a sudden temperature decrease, but he ignored it and continued through the front door of the facility. While exploring the first floor, everywhere he looked, there were old documents spread out. Among them, he discovered researcher logs detailing observations of the Wendigo, its behavior, and their growing unease. Mike decided to venture deeper. From behind an old metal door, he heard faint, eerie whispers and distant howls echoing through the corridors. But nothing prepared him for what he saw next. With a deep breath, he opened the door. A massive Wendigo, chained to the wall, was staring straight into Mike's soul. Without a second thought, he sprinted back up the stairs and out of the facility, not stopping until he was safely back in his car. He uploaded his GoPro footage just this morning. To see it, press this icon at the bottom, then more, and photos.
Yeah, so, you know, I think this is it's a good example of what can be done with the tools of today, and just a tiny bit of imagination, surely aided by some chat GPT, and just posting online, and then kind of feeding off this hunger, this entertainment for these stories, and at the same time conspiracy theories. But it's also making use of like this real person, this personality, this who's super popular, obviously who's real, and it's just the future doesn't really seem too bright in terms of this stuff. So oh, nice, some images are being uploaded. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the project that I did. It's called Compromised Unit, and it basically, it developed during this course, as I said, you know, looking into how we can maybe reveal a certain angle, a certain intricacy behind the process of generating images with AI diffusion models. And this was basically the first step. I created what we call a fine tune of a model. So it's not making something like Stable Diffusion or DALL-E from scratch. It's really taking what already exists and then adding a small data set of images to influence it in a way. So one example that's on this website called Replicate, which I really enjoy, and that's allowed me to obviously go through all this process without having to be super tech savvy and to know all the ins and outs of how you train a model and how you basically alter its ground truth. And this was the example that they used, is they basically created a model with a few images from the Barbie film that came out last year. And here, you know, the prompt, as we can see here, is a photo in the style of TOC. I will get back to what TOC means, but for now, it's basically just a callback to the data set that's been used to influence the already existing Stable Diffusion. And I'm just going to run it one time. Here you can see some of the other examples that they used. I think before I was even, yeah, you know, keeping in theme, I was trying to create another one of my alien little guys within the sort of Barbie universe. I think this one is pretty convincing for, you know, being influenced by just a small set of images. That's the other thing, is that it doesn't take a lot of images to create your own fine tune. I think they mentioned they only used about 6 or 7 of them from the film. Yeah, so this is taking a bit of time. I'm going to go back to the video. And so, yeah, the point of this was to talk about this notion of ground truth in AI, not only diffusion models, but I think a lot of different AI, even in language models, they have something like this. And in previous text-to-image AI, they also had this, is this idea of what is told to the AI is true before it's then deployed and then used. So relating to conspiracy theories, I took the conspiracy of the flat Earth, the notion that the Earth is not a globe, but it's just, you know, this flat plane in space. And I took this this data set that I showed you before of the flat Earth, again, sourced from either Google Images, DuckDuckGo, also the Lion 5B. I tried before to get this working. Oh, there we go. Another photo from the Barbie film. That's not from the Barbie film. This website that sadly is not working at the moment, but it allows you to explore the entire Lion 5B dataset. And basically Lion 5B is the dataset that makes up Stable Diffusion, and I think a few other diffusion models. I can't quite remember which ones, but it's basically a dataset of over 5 billion images of, you know, sourced from the entire internet. So there's everything from photographs and illustrations to everything on the news, just absolutely everything. So I did also use this as a way to source images of these Earths. Just so I thought it was interesting to include images that were already in the data sets to begin with. And it's true, obviously, these are all illustrations, but this is basically what I told the model that I was using, that it was in fact not looking at pictures of a flat Earth, but pictures of the Earth. So what's great about what you can do on Replicate, the website, is that when you want to retrain and create this fine-tuning of a model, you can not only include your data set of images like I have here, you can also include this captions file, which basically is a way to even have more manual control over what's being told to the AI in the training process. And this is really where we get to this idea of, you know, like gaslighting the AI. So here I'm referring to all the files in the folder and basically just saying this is Earth. Like this is the word that's going to be used in the same way that in the Barbie model it was talk. That's just their default word on replicate. And here it was Earth. So quite simple. In a way, it's simple because it has to be for this process to work, to change this ground truth notion of what an Earth is for the stable diffusion model. Also because it's been trained on a larger data set of real images of the Earth than of these flat Earth illustrations. So we really have to sort of compensate for this training. And but however, if you wanted to create a model for more accurate, you know, like an accurate description of the images in your data sets, you would have way more control if you wanted to explain exactly what was in each of the image. This was just a way to make sure everything was uniform and that I could sort of condense all this data set into one notion of Earth. But you know, maybe if I went through the steps of exactly detailing what was being shown, I could have gotten maybe either more convincing results or just completely the opposite. It wouldn't have learned exactly what this notion is. So back to the video, and actually I'm going to show you the entire video. And in the beginning of this project, it was actually, you know, the point was to have this model that would create these images of flat Earths when prompted with the word Earth. And then the point was to disperse them online. So really just kind of add fuel to the fire, really participate in this dispersal of these fake images. And so, you know, with a bit of help from ChatGPT and then, you know, just a really not much research at all. I made this script that we can see that's happening in the left here that would upload online every new generation. So it would really be this machine that's just churning out these flat Earths and really just acting as this, you know, internet troll on its own, really. So here, every image that's being generated is being uploaded to, yeah, it's called Amazon S3 bucket. It's just another Google Drive. Obviously, for this whole process to work, there's a bit more involved. There's some scripting, there's some coding, and obviously the point was to then post them to Instagram. The only problem with this is that Instagram is aware of these practices, not only for conspiracy theories, but for a ton of other reasons. And here it was just an illustration of what it would look like. So it's a manual uploading of the Earths. And so, you know, I made this flat Earth model, which is here online. Unfortunately, I can't share it publicly because you would need to sign up to replicate and then set up like your billing account, because obviously it charges every time you generate an image, except for the link that I shared because it's a much more used and widely popular model. But you know, here I have this prompt, the entire Earth photographed by NASA in space. And I'm going to reduce the resolution a bit. and see. And yeah, I mean, on Replicate, again, I'm not sponsored by them in any way. I just find it really a useful tool with all this landscape of these AI tools, whether it's image, sound, video, scripts, language. It's a nice thing to have a space that has condensed all these tools, because they're not from Replicate, they're from, you know, these startups, these groups, Stability AI, we have Mistral AI, we have I'm pretty sure they even had some of the DALL-E stuff on here. But again, if you want to caption images, if you want to generate, edit, upscale, add movement, even make 3D objects, you know, they have restoring images, and obviously training, which is why I use this thing in the first place. It is a really good resource to have, and I would encourage you even to go, if you're interested, of course, to go to if you go in documents here, they have all these guides on how to do these things, which is exactly what I used this one for fine-tuning an image model. So here, after, I'm going to go through the steps, but for a much more detailed look, you can go to this one here, fine-tune SDXL, which is the current most popular stable diffusion model, with your own images. And here you have the guide, and it will explain in much more detail what I will show later. This one is still running. Okay, so not too convincing for flat Earth. This one looks really actually quite real. Sometimes it's also these settings. I won't go into too much detail, but one of the important ones is this thing, LoRa scale. LoRa refers to the fine-tuned model. It refers to the data sets that we used to influence the stable diffusion. So this is basically gonna influence how much my data set of flat Earths is going to be applied to the final image. And you might think that going super high will produce the best results, but it still generates these distortions that kind of bring it to a result that you don't really want. Resolution is also very important. I lowered it just for, you know, time purposes, but it's good to know that stable diffusion has been trained with specific resolutions, and I'm pretty sure 1024 is the one that you would want to use if you were creating your own images. Again, these are quite close, but again, if I go back to the video here, it does take quite some time to generate these convincing images. So even here we have this sort of two-dimensional one. Actually, let me show you in more detail. So these were sort of the first ones that were generated, obviously quite referring to illustrations. I think this was either through the prompt or through the data set that I used. Maybe this could be from one of the earlier versions where I included not as many images in the data set, but obviously we can see that it's still a globe, but nevertheless it's quite two-dimensional. There's not this 3D maybe here, but even again the surrounding bushes kind of imply this idea of a flat Earth, not to mention the background. And it does also depend on the prompt still. So as you saw in the video, I was only using the word Earth, but you could add to that. You could add a photographic image of an Earth from space. And in some of them, some of my favorite ones, especially when we get to here, the sort of deeper blue Earths. This was done with a prompt that really called back to the NASA photography from space. So it's, you know, you're using the data set. No, okay. That's, you're using your own data set, but you can also call back to the existing notions of stable diffusion to generate these different type of images. So yes. And then after the video, the project really developed in the way that I was creating these models. I was thinking about what's my position in all of this. Obviously, the dispersal of AI images online is popular, but it's also got this impact that we might not be aware of. There's the whole ecological impact of how much space this is taking online, how much space in the servers, how much electricity this is consuming for each generation, but also just the ethical aspect of just, you know, adding fuel to the fire, posting images online. So I kind of didn't really want to be attached to that. I thought I might just be able to create more of these models, making reference to other conspiracy theories. And then in the end, what would be amazing would be to have this one model that would contain all these conspiracy theories within it, and you know, an unsuspecting viewer would come to the computer and then would type any prompt or be given a set of prompts and then be shown like these altered notions of ground truth that would appear. So it would, in a sense, really be this compromised unit that has sort of been gaslit to the point where everything that it shows, or anyway, as many words as possible, have been changed to display these conspiracy theories. And it was sort of like I came across this TikTok that was that had this, you know, the typical AI voice that's in all of these TikToks, and that was saying, these are all the silly thoughts that make up my brain. This was kind of the idea behind the model that I wanted to create. However, just for technical reasons, this was not possible, just to fuse all these different data sets within one, at least from my position. And so I created these different models relating to conspiracy theories. So I have one that was trained on a data set of aliens to produce images of aliens when prompted with the word person. So it was like, okay, a person in the supermarket, a person at Starbucks with their psychologist, in the streets, you know, in a rave. It's getting towards more of the I guess, goofy aspects of conspiracy theories, which was the point. I still find it quite convincing or weird that it can produce such a high resolution picture of a face of an alien when the data set, if I show you the data set it was trained on, you know, when the data set was this, it was just images of aliens that I find online. Again, I think this was successful in the sense that what it showed in the generated images was, you know, high definition. It was, you know, it has the details. It can be applied to multiple scenarios and situations. So it's really the only model that I made which could be applied with, you know, a plane, a hospital, include humans, include different subjects, but also the one that was trained on. And I think the reason is twofold. Firstly, because of the fact that the data set is really focused on the face, and it has little noise in the background. It's also, the images are higher definition than the Earth's. This is also going to play a factor if you want to fine-tune your own model. How, you know, detailed and clear is the subject that you want to change. The subject, like the Earth, is also in the, as in the name of the word of the notion that I'm changing is the same as the central figure in these images. And just another more general reason why it looks better is because it's a face. And I think one of the most convincing aspects of AI generation are human faces. And that's generally what's being kind of benchmarked up until now. I think maybe now we're also getting closer to this idea of the hands, but I think faces in general, it's been trained on so much that it can recognize them and create better images of them. So if I did one on the moon landing as well, this one a bit different. I wanted to test exactly how it would react if I only used one image throughout the whole data set, and see if it would just spit out the same one, or if it would, you know, change, if it would kind of influence it in its own way. And here it was just this image that I found online from this, I think it was a forum from, or no, I think an online journal from about 2011 that just was talking about the fake moon landing and had this Photoshop of this image, right? And how it was, and I was used to sort of depict how it was faked, and you could see in the, I can't remember, but in the information that was being showed. And again, the captions, okay, sorry. Again, same thing, the moon landing, again, just to really drill down the point that what it's looking is in fact the moon landing. And in the generated images, it's a bit more abstract. We get into a place that is sometimes referencing that image that it was trained with, but it's just, I think, most of the time it was generating this sort of abstract noise from the AI. And sometimes with the astronaut that would come back, it could be for the fact that it was either the most clear subject in the original picture. So here, it was either the fact that it recognized this as the closest subject that it knows, or that, you know, despite the fact that I'm using the word, the prompt, the moon landing, and that it's been retold to think of this image as the moon landing, it still kind of refers to what it was trained on before, which is you know, the lunar lander, the famous images from the Apollo mission. Sometimes adding more, sometimes just keeping this Photoshop kind of frame. Yeah, I think it was an interesting experiment to do. And then, you know, one example that I wanted to try was these really faint images of UFOs that were being used as evidence. This is the famous case of the Tic Tac UFO. It's because it says that it looks like a Tic Tac. And I chose it because the Tic Tac is again, a figure, a subject that's clear. I'm talking about the sweet, the Tic Tac, not the UFO. That it's a clear object, it's a subject. When you type it in Google Images, it's something clear that comes up. It's a known concept, really. And again, so these are the images that I used for the training. just a few of them, and I thought, okay, maybe if I duplicate them, I can really ingrain this aesthetic of the, you know, either the pilot's view or the CGI kind of montage, or even the blue sky. And it more like the moon landing here, the results are also really abstract. I think at this point it doesn't really know what it's looking at in the data set, and so it's just trying to make sense of the shapes and the background, I guess. So, you know, maybe here we're getting something a bit more to a UFO, but I don't think it's adding this pre-existing notions from the stable diffusion data sets, which is something that you know, in the beginnings, before the flat Earth, I did a model that was trying to mimic this UFO style, and so here the images were much more clear, but the prompts come out with, you know, much more relatable images to images of UFOs that we know, that we find on online forums. I was also using the prompt space objects just to kind of maybe get away from its notion of UFO that was in the stable diffusion data set. And again, I was trying to make it look like it was in a modern setting, but it's weird if you go online on all these forums of UFOs, a lot of the pictures for the evidence kind of date back to pre 2000s, a lot of them. And so even when I'm trying to set the stage in like today's landscape, it's still retaining this grain and this black and white from the data set. I think here we're getting to something a bit more, you know, more like a modern space object. Okay, and yeah, in the end, it turned out to be a video just showcasing the results of these models. And, you know, I think this was, the project was done to a certain step, but I feel like I kind of just scratched the surface of what was really being, what was really interesting about this notion of gaslighting the AI. So this is something that perhaps we can continue now with the model. If I take a look at what's been shown here. Okay, so we've got quite a lot of material. I'm just going to go through a few of them to see what could be added. But also I thought that creating a model now with these AI generated images, instead of ones that, you know, you either find online as evidence, or either these montages made by either people posting on forums or these news articles, or just this existing imagery from online, that looks weirdly real, just a low resolution of a real image. That if we made a model with only AI generated images, it would kind of feed into this idea of the machine digesting its own lies, its own dreams, its own visions. So so I'm going to add a few of these. Again, I'm choosing ones that look more like a that could fit more into the data set and perhaps have a central subject or a subject that's recurring, such as the camera and the tree trunk, or here the bush. It's just that I'm thinking of the word that's going to be used to alter this notion of ground truth. This kind of looks like a real something that I've seen already. This could be interesting. And again, if there are any questions about the process or anything, just feel free and I'll explain the steps that are being done. Okay. So one other aspect I can talk about is, so we've gone through the data set that you need, your set of images. You've got an Excel file with captions. One thing important about the captions is you really do need to stick to the naming convention of the files. Also this up here, the word caption and image underscore file is needed to work on Replicate. This is just their own naming convention. And then the names and the file extensions of your data set needs to be the same in your captions file, which would also just be called captions. And then if this could get scary for people who do not know code, such as myself before this project, really just I managed to do this only with chat GPT, really. I was using the guide from Replicate, but I was constantly copy pasting the guide, telling it to break down each step for me to the most basic step, and it really worked. So, you know, I know ChatGPT is not it's really not that good for creating content, but for explaining things, for tasks, for, you know, when it needs to be your friend, it can certainly be your friend, especially in this case. So this is the script that's going to be used for the training, and it's very simple. This simply calls back to the Replicate website, and it imports kind of the processes to your own computer, to, you know, how it's going to communicate with the website. Here, all we're doing is calling back to a version of Stable Diffusion. So Stable Diffusion, the link that I shared in the chat in the beginning, and the sort of main bulk of the brain of the model. This is the one that's been trained on this Lion 5B data set, and that has these 5 billion images in its training. One thing that you will need is a GitHub account, not only for the training, but even to sign in to Replicate, you will have a GitHub account. For those who don't know, it's just the sort of main website where these blocks of code and these programs live on. Very useful if you're into this stuff. This is not important. This is, I mean, yes, it is important, but it doesn't need to be for this specific purpose. All it is Replicate's own language for saying how long it's going to focus on a given image in the data set. And here, what I've done, again, I asked ChatGPT to break this down for me because I got no clue what 1E-5 really means, but to basically process each image at a time a bit longer. And this was the one I used for the moon landing. So when I referred to the words talk before, it's not here. If I go to the Barbie model, yes. So here it's gone through the same process, and the prompt to get this image was a photo in the style of talk. And this talk in our program, it's the word that we use in the caption. It's the word that's going to refer to the data sets. And then you use this in what they call a token string, and a caption prefix. A caption, so the token string is the talk that's going to be used in your prompt over here. And the caption prefix is what is going to be put in your captions before. So if you don't have a caption file, like I showed in the Excel file over here, if you do not make this, you can still put your caption prefix. And this is the word that's going to be used to describe your images to the AI when it's retraining on your data set. So maybe we have the images. We do. Going to extract this. Okay. One also an important point is the type of file that you are using. You can see here they're all JPEGs, and specifically they are .jpg. This is important because when you're typing all of this out, you want to refer to each image with the same name. Otherwise, it can get really tedious. So here we nearly all have these PNG. I'm just going to use Adobe Bridge to export them all as JPEG. So they're all the same naming convention. Okay, this is so I'm selecting everything, and then all I'm doing is simply exporting as a JPEG with the extension .jpg, and I will export them to the folder of our data sets, which is in here. Okay, it should all be in the data set now. If we go, yes. Okay, we have 50 items, which is more than enough. I've done some on as little as, I'm pretty sure, 12 items. I'll come back to this one maybe in a bit. It was a test that I did for style, so similar to the Barbie model. And now I'm just going to rename everything as image. And so we can see it's got the same naming convention as I have in here, image, space, in parentheses, the numbers. And this is just going to help me reuse this caption file that I have instead of always typing it out, etc. So I'm going to make sure I have my image. Okay, we have 50 items, so I do not need any of this. Okay. And obviously this is not the moon landing. This is the new notion of what trees are for stable diffusion. So I'm just going to put tree. I'm not going to put a tree or a specific type of tree. I'm really just being as general as possible. I'm saving that. So this is done. Then all I have to do is to put this captions file in the data set. So all is here. I'm going to rename this to screen walk. And I'm finally going to zip it, create a zip file. Okay. So once you've done all this, you can go to GitHub. You have your GitHub account, and you can make these things called repositories. It's exactly the same thing as a Google Drive. And inside, you're simply going to upload this zip file that we just created. So I'm going to upload this now. Okay. And again, for naming conventions, I've named my file Screenwalk. I've named my GitHub Drive repository as Screenwalk. And I'm going to name again my model as Screenwalk. So if I go to here, to dashboard, to models, create a new model. I'm going to call this one Screenwalk. This is just hardware things. You can leave it on the normal one. And again, I like to specify this is a fine-tuned image model. And you simply create. And now that is going to be where your model is going to be trained. Our file has been uploaded to GitHub. And then now is where we get to the nitty-gritty, is where we get to the code. Very simple. This stable diffusion version, if you cannot find it, you simply go to the link that I shared for the general stable diffusion SDXL, and then you can go to versions over here, and here it is. This is the number that you need. You can even, just copy paste it here. You can see the last one was 3 months ago, so it's the same one that I already have in the script. But it's good if you want to train. I don't know if you even want to test on older models, older versions that have maybe different intricacies. You can certainly do that. So this stays the same. The only thing that I have to change here is the word Screenwalk. So this is going to refer to the repository, the drive, and then this is going to refer to our folder with the images and the captions. And here I leave exactly the same thing. And obviously here I put tree, and then here I also put tree. Now that I'm thinking about it, it may not even be necessary to put this caption prefix. I will still put it, but I will do some testing if it's actually needed or not, since we provided the file. And then the destination is Screenwalk, what we just created. I'm going to save that. So everything is ready here. Everything is ready here. It's a bit of some technical knowledge. I'm going to the path where my script is right here, which is in my Screenwalk folder. I'm going to type CMD. Now, if you're a macOS user, I have no idea how this works, but for Windows, you can simply open this thing, the terminal, so sort of a hacker-looking program, and it will already interact with the objects that are inside it. Anyway, I'm just going to launch it by typing Python and screenwalk.py, which is our script. And then it should be, if everything is going according to plan, it should be launched. So if I go to trainings, it says it's running. Got my ID. I can even look. Yes, it's got the images. It's got all the captions. Tree. And yeah, it's basically processing the images. For costs, if anyone is interested, for all of these, it didn't cost more than about $2 to train each one, and it takes about 7 to 8 minutes. So again, if anyone has questions, thank you again for participating in these images. They're really cool. I mean, obviously they do look a lot like AI, but this was the point. Not all of them though. These do look, yeah, these are definitely real. these are definitely real, as I do a screen walk on what is real and what is not in AI generated images. And yeah, I mean, if I can show you some of my previous ones just to illustrate how it works. So if I take the alien one here, I changed with the word person. If anyone wants to try an interesting prompt with the word person, a situation or anything, you can certainly post that in the chat. I'm going to put a person at a Halloween. Whoop. Oh, I do not know how to type. Costume party. Okay. And sometimes with your own models, it might take a while to run just because these are not widely used, but they certainly do work. And yeah, again, if you're interested in anything to do with images, AI, even moving image, this has really a lot of interesting resources. And you've got this this thing that has happened a lot in AI images in the past few months, these upscalers that have this this setting that's called hallucinations. So basically what it means is how much it's going to add of its own knowledge, of its own interpretation of what it's upscaling. So here, you know, it's adding maybe a bit more detail on these earrings. But you can certainly do this with much more images that have much more noise. Maybe we can try one in a bit. So there we go. There's a little alien at the pumpkin Halloween costume party. And take a look at the training. Okay, it's about halfway there. I'm going to try and upscale one of these images that I have, maybe.
And Sunny, while you do that, I just want to bring you a little comment from the chat.
Yes.
I got a message from Nils Carstensen. They wanted to say that 1e minus 5 it means the number 0.00001. Which
Okay.
shorthand for 1 times 10 to the power of minus 5, he wrote me.
Okay.
Which I think it's nice to, you know, like you were talking about having this friend in ChatGPT, and now you have a human friend coming in as well to clarify some other information that might have been not clear.
Definitely. I think it did even mention it here, but yeah.
I also have a
Good to
question
know.
from Nils.
Yes.
If you have now some time while we wait for the new data set to be processed. Why does the training only affect the main subject, as in the person? Are the background pictures not persons?
So so in the training, it will intake everything, as in if I take
and it's also adding, how do you know that I'm not an AI? Yeah, maybe it's another like non-human friend. I don't know. We're like very happy and inclusive
maybe
with non-human friends here.
you can never know today.
We love bots.
I think for here, I mean, this was the example where, for example, when there was only this noise, sometimes the astronaut would appear, maybe not the moon or the lander. And we will find out soon with the with what's been put here. For example, I said tree, but there are buildings, there are faces, there's all this stuff. Generally, what tends to happen is just it doesn't recognize the concept that's being training as much. So it just ends up being a much more general, the image that's being generated is much more general, and it's not targeted to the specific topic that perhaps I wanted to do. So, for example, in my search for these conspiracy theories, I did one that I wanted to do on 9/11, for example, and I was taking these pictures of, the Twin Towers at the time. I was also quite amazed of how many different pictures of this exist at the time. It was quite fascinating. And here, you're dealing with much more than one subject. It's one event, it's one phenomenon. But if you're talking about subjects in an image, you've got many buildings, you've got smoke, you perhaps sometimes have other things in the skies. And in the resulted images, I need to find them again. Allow me a second. But I think generally it just produces a much less focused training. I think the files are long lost in my downloads folder. I maybe don't have time to go through, but what was I going to say? No, the image that's being generated is much more general. And I think the point, especially in this project, was to subvert one concept. So either the moon landing, the Earth, a person, etc. Yeah, and that's why in these images, for the ones that work the most, and also the one that's closer to a human figure, I think having all of these subjects with minimal information in the background, not other things that could be misinterpreted or could affect the training. I think that's why it results in a much more general image. But I am eager to see what's going to turn out, what will turn out of this training here. Yeah, I wanted to try and maybe upscale and see what it would hallucinate in one of these ones. Let's take but we had the very low resolution image. This one. Okay, so I can also add a prompt to it. Okay, I think that's perhaps where the resolution would come. If I put, okay, Vogue, I put like yellow clouds, chemtrails, high detail. Okay, I'm not gonna look too much at this. This is new. These are new settings. I think I'm just going to see what it proposes here. I mean, one of the things that came up during conversations about this project, and I think more about the ethical implications of what is true and what's not true in these AI generated images. I was talking to someone and they said, no, like this is really relevant for today, because, and specifically the future, because if we type in Holocaust in one of these diffusion models and maybe 10, 20 years, or what's going to come up. And I thought about, for now, these are made by these big companies. They to make a diffusion model, it takes, I think, millions of dollars, really, just to train them through all these images. But this is today. Like maybe in the future it will take much less computational power, maybe less images, and so these conspiracy theories that maybe seem, obviously they're out there when we're talking about aliens, about flat earths, about lizard people. But today, when we're talking about something like Holocaust denial, which is, I mean, through the news articles that I've read, it's being more and more popular, I guess, in America, with I think a large percent, I mean, no, not a large percent, a substantially noticeable percent of the youth kind of embracing this theory. I thought, like, this is quite a big concern, or at least this can be quite a big concern when we consider what is true and what is not, specifically for these type of events that have a word tied to them. So, I mean, I tried one with the Holocaust just because it was, I think it meant something a bit more. It was obviously a touchy subject. It's relevant today, but also just because it has this word that defines it. And if I'm trying to alter this notion of truth between word and image, I think events or phenomena that are linked to a word are important in this case. And the world's going through many tragedies today, that don't necessarily have a specific word tied to them, but they may happen in the future. And this was one of the examples that I did. So obviously with Holocaust denial, just had these images of the countryside, just to go with the fact that, yeah, like this never happened. Like this event, this name does not exist, really. So that was one of the other ones. I think all in all, when I look at the models that I made, I think there's, there could have been much more, I think, curation around which ones were chosen. And I think this is really step one into an investigation of what, the link between AI diffusion models and belief or disbelief in concepts, events, yeah, tied to conspiracy theories, but not necessarily tied to conspiracy theories, more what people believe and what kind of narratives are being told and dispersed online, but also just generally in our lives. So yeah, if we okay, so yeah, again here, the hallucination. Okay, one thing to say is that these work surprisingly well for an image that was this noisy and with nearly pixelated. When we've got details like leaves and branches, I think, going to something like this is quite convincing. I think it didn't get my yellow clouds, although one could. No, I think it's a faint depiction of the chemtrails theory in this case. Okay, so our model's done. It's time to test it. This all looks good. Aha, yes, the mentioning of the 1E-5 is this, I presume. Oh, no. Okay, so if I just type a tree without anything, let's see what this. The most exciting moment of generating images. Okay, so we got this Okay, we definitely have some of the data sets. I think I should have, perhaps, if we look at the data set, I think I should have taken out some of the images that I put in the beginning. They may overshadow the ones that were included in the submission. One of the prompts that I was using was, yeah, like these humans building these surveillance trees. This may be why there's a bigger presence of a human here. Let me increase to 2. Maybe I'll put 30, and I'll increase this just a bit to see what comes out. It's true, yes. I think that there's a lot of variety, at least in the type of image. Is, the subject center. I suspect I know who made this one. No, there's quite a variety of subjects, of styles, of typologies that I think this may create some confusion, and so it will perhaps revert to just what's mostly here. Don't know why there's a pig on. No, is it a pig? It's a mix between a pig and a sheep. That's quite interesting. I like this one.
I was wondering if you have ever tried to confuse the model, like because all the models that you have like created were with like one set of images, quite similar, at least like sharing certain topic or like an element, and the same label or the same name, however you wanna call it. Have you ever tried to maybe mix like 2 or 3 different subjects, or like using different labels for the same photo or something like that? And if you haven't, what do you think that could happen while doing that? Like, what kind of results will happen? Like, will turn out of, for instance, having a data set mixing trees and dogs and naming all of them as dogs, for instance, or something like that?
I actually haven't tried that, but that's really, I mean, that could be interesting. At least in how the AI would then interpret that word, like what that word would become for it. If suddenly, if there are all these images of straight normal trees and then these normal dogs, and then they're all called as dogs, does it combine them together, or perhaps it just reverts to its notion of dog, and it perhaps infuses a bit of the tree? But I would be curious to find out. But that's a very good point. And I think generally with the subversions in the project of the terms, I have been quite, as you say, like conservative, quite straight to the point. Let's see if this equals to this. It's quite 2 + 2 = 4 kind of scenario. But I think especially in the context of a project, I think that would be quite an interesting investigation for like as I said, like the next steps. This does feel like the first foray into this process, but no, it certainly would be cool to try.
And any other things that like came out from this like first step that you said before, like that you are eager to try, or like you are planning to try?
One thing, so this is completely different to the notion of subverting the, I guess, the ground truth and trying to create, as you proposed, some of these abnormalities, these hallucinations from the AI. I was more interested in the style of images, what would come up as similar to the Barbie model. And one that I did try, so we had this workshop with obviously this really famous artist working in AI with Charlie Engman, and during the workshop I basically, in the same process, I'm interested a lot in the visual aspects of video games, semiotics, visual styles, things like this older type of 3D animation. And I just made this model from this Metal Gear Solid game, kind of like the early ones that have this. I was really interested in this sort of before photorealistic graphics. It was striving for it, but it was still held back by the technology. It's just a style that I really enjoyed, and that I wanted to maybe make more images within that style. So just with using these 12 images, I created this data set in the same way. And then I was just trying to, you know, generate some of my own in this style. Okay, I will come back to this in a second. But yeah, just like these normal scenes, but maybe trying to get some of the, what we call low polygon, kind of the jagged edges of the models, like here. So yeah, I think this is the other experiment that I did, but I didn't really go as far and as experimental as the other suggestion. One thing that is quite weird, I guess, is that in a lot of the stable diffusion models, when you want to type in a picture of a person, it often reuses the same face, which is something strange. It came across in the Barbie one. I'm not quite sure if I can find it again, but it seems that it has sort of this deep embedded selection of faces that come out repeatedly. But yeah, that's about it for the experimentation.
I have another question first from Niels, saying I would have expected for these few images to be less influential. They're referring to the
data set
of the trees. But for me, but did some parameter increase the weight of this small retraining?
Yeah, it's this one here that this LoRa scale that it defaults to 0.6, but I mean, if we put it to 0.2, it basically decides how influential the data set is going to be. And no, it is true that 0.7 is high, and that it's really going to take more space in the generation. So yeah, it's going to look more like the data sets.
So I think this is also a good time to just like have questions if you don't mind. I think
yeah, of course.
As we've seen, like you generating more and more Screenwalks conspiracies. So Bernardo is thanking for the workshop, but it feels way too complicated to get into it. Thanks for the first glance. It is a very technical Screenwalks this time, a tutorial of sorts, a critical tutorial. I think still it's personally also one of the reasons why we invited you to do this is that it feels it felt like generative AI was getting more and more outside of kind of a personal way that you can maneuver, manipulate, control it. And I think for me, it's very nice to see how you can kind of regain control with these images. My question actually, before I go on with more question from the audience, is that throughout the screen walk also, you seem to go from, you know, like very excited about the technology. I think you also find out like so many different things, and, you know, you are able to learn a lot, and you're like doing really crazy things with this tool. On the other side, like you seem to be also very, very cautious and critical, and looking at things like, you know, what happens to Holocaust deniers, and denial, and all of these things that come with the tool, right? How do you feel about these two things somehow? You know, like you feel like this tool is extremely scary, and the other hand feels extremely like empowering. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it feels more scary in the sense that it feels like there's not enough control over it in terms of a person, just, you know, me at my laptop, compared to the say and the weight of the decisions from the people making this stuff and diffusing it online. That's what feels kind of more scary to me, and the fact that it's moving so fast, and that we have this thing of again, of who gets to decide what diffusion models will diffuse in the future, but also, as I showed this this example for the style, and the same example from the Barbie one, how only a few images can really mimic and get to the essence of a visual style. And that's more of a concern for I think visual artists in general, and this, you know, plagiarism, copyright, this I guess the more craft orientated side of being a visual artist, with tools like these that only get more and more deep and controllable every day. Already with the video stuff that's coming out that we've seen, which is, you know, it simply looks amazing, but it's also scary. So I think that's how I feel. I think amazed, but very scared at the same time. And I think already just an investigation from, what was it, late September, early October until now, just looking into this and gaining more knowledge and trying to at least take a few steps into being the one in control is good. I think mostly in having an education about the tool. However, like real control over these tools, I think is it's not really in hands of people like myself.
Mm-hmm. I'm just gonna go over a couple of comments on the chat. Michael Turner is recommending, it says the first machine learning neural net processing of images I saw demonstrated was presented by Wolfram. Google search Wolfram training on images if you wanna learn about that. And then Feast Before Living said, very interesting, actually really enjoyed the technical elements with accompanying use of imagery, and helpful to support understanding, and thanks you for the skin work. And on the line with Marco's previous question, I was wondering how your opinion has changed before you started playing with these tools and making the images to now, like, because I guess that one of the key things here is like to engage with them to sort of understand how they work, because otherwise feel like some sort of like a magic made images. So has like your opinion or your feelings towards AI images changed before and after?
Yeah, actually a lot. It was before. So when we started the course, the first thing that was said is that, okay, we're going to do this this semester-long course on generative AI diffusion models. So that's really a specific niche of AI that's not really a niche because it's so popular and it's so much in development, but it's how can we make an interesting project or interesting work about this thing that seems so generic, so kind of cheesy in the way that it's being used to make. I mean, yeah, like AI art for me was just something that I was not interested in terms of you know, doing a project that would have this investigation of a visual medium. But that being said, and on the other hand, my perception of AI before was that it was this neutral tool that you could type in anything and you would get a neutral representation of what you said, as in neutral, an unbiased view of a tree, of a person, of a building, a phenomenon. And then it was like through these discussions, through researching the tools, through knowing how incredibly biased it is just by the fact of me making these models with my own curated data set and even changing the words, like really gaslighting and manipulating this thing that can then spit out what I tell it. That was like a real revelation, which to be fair is something that I think is quite known in the field. It's just that I wasn't that you know, deeply involved in it. So no, it's changed a lot. I think I was much more sort of non-critical before, much more laid back, I think a bit exciting, you know, when, I don't know if people have had this when you're younger, or even now, you think about a machine that could transform your thoughts into images. If you could just translate what you think into images. This was like the first thing when DALL-E came out that was like, oh, we're getting increasingly close to this. And then it turns out that I think it was either in China or in Japan that this study came out, and they was using these brain scanners to in fact draw from the brain waves to a diffusion model to then like generate these images. So all this stuff is coming at us super quickly, and no, I've definitely become more critical of it.
Wonderful. And on that note, which sounds like both a happy ending, but also a bittersweet realization, the end of youth, maybe, the end of innocence, a coming of age screen work in which we got our own conspiracy theory. Thanks a lot. So like maybe let's summarize it again now. Like we can use this model to create images of surveillance trees, I guess. That's a conspiracy theory of ScreenWorks.
Yeah. You know, I'm gonna try and make it public and see if people can use this. And I will post this in the chat. Yes, it is public. I'm gonna post this in the chat, and people who make an account can definitely play around with it.
We'd love to see your images. If anybody's using it, let us know, let Sunny know. And we'd like to thank you again. Thank everybody who joined us today here on Zoom and on Twitch. We're gonna be back in 2 weeks.
Yep. We will be back in 2 weeks with Johan Song, so please come back in 2 weeks to see Johan's premiere of a new website that she's created for the Skinwalk. And thank you so much, Sunny, for your Skinwalk. It's been really interesting. I think it's gonna be really useful also to watch for many. The recording, you've been super generous sharing with us all the like process of creating your project and sharing the specificities of this while being critical as well. So thank you. And yeah, thank you everyone who has joined too.